Dr. Sarah Chen stood at her workstation in NASA's Deep Space Monitoring Facility, staring at the readings on her screen with trembling hands. The coffee in her mug had gone cold hours ago, forgotten the moment the first anomalous signals appeared at the edge of the solar system. "Director Matthews needs to see this," she whispered, double-checking the data for the 5th time. Her fingers flew across the keyboard, sending the alert that would wake up half of the world's space agencies. The objects had appeared suddenly. 12 massive ships, each larger than anything humanity had ever built. They emerged from what the sensors could only describe as tears in space itself, their crystalline hulls glowing with an inner light that outshone distant stars. Humanity had been preparing for this moment for decades. Ever since the first mysterious radio signals were detected by research stations in China and Argentina 15 years ago, Earth's governments had quietly been getting ready. Underground bunkers were expanded, weapon systems were modernized, and a unified planetary defense grid was established under the cover of satellite internet initiatives. Within hours of the ship's appearance, military bases worldwide went into silent alert. Submarines slipped quietly into deeper waters, mobile missile platforms began their carefully planned dispersal patterns, and civilian satellites smoothly transitioned to their secondary military functions. The alien ships moved with precision through the solar system, their formation suggesting military training rather than peaceful exploration. They passed Neptune's orbit in hours, their speed defying known physics. As they approached Jupiter, Earth's hidden quantum sensors captured detailed scans of their technology. "Look at this," Dr. James Wilson said, pointing to his screen where complex data streams scrolled past. "They're broadcasting something." He worked with his team to decode the signal, their quantum computers processing the alien language patterns. The message, when it finally came through, was both beautiful and terrifying in its simplicity. Holographic displays appeared in every major city on Earth, showing scenes of worlds far more advanced than their own. The images showed peaceful integration, technological advancement, and prosperity, all under the banner of something they called the Galactic Empire. "We bring peace and advancement to all civilizations we encounter," the message proclaimed in perfect English, Hindi, Mandarin, and every other major Earth language. "Join us in prosperity." But the analysts at various intelligence agencies saw what wasn't being shown. Hidden in the background of these magnificent scenes were subtle signs of military occupation. The peaceful citizens all wore identical identifiers. The prosperity came with uniformity. The advancement came with submission. In the White House Situation Room, General Laura Martinez presented her analysis to the World Security Council. "This isn't first contact," she stated firmly. "This is a standard military reconnaissance before invasion. They're following a playbook they've used 1,000 times before." The council members watched grimly as she showed them intelligence gathered over the past decade. "We've been intercepting their communications for years," she continued. "They call this peaceful integration. But we've seen this pattern. They're not here to welcome us as equals. They're here to add another world to their collection." As the alien fleet crossed Mars' orbit, Earth remained surprisingly quiet. No official responses were sent. No panic filled the streets. Instead, humanity did what it had always done best. It prepared for war. In military bases across the planet, commanders briefed their troops. In laboratories, scientists made final adjustments to hybrid weapons combining human innovation with reversed-engineered alien tech. In bunkers deep underground, political leaders finalized their unprecedented unified response. The Galactic Empire thought they were approaching another primitive world to add to their collection. They had no idea that Earth had been watching, learning, and preparing. They were about to learn why humans had survived countless extinction-level events, why Earth's history was written in the blood of empires that thought themselves invincible. They were about to learn why you should never underestimate a species that had spent its entire existence fighting itself and surviving. The alien fleet hung in Earth's orbit like a string of gleaming pearls against the black velvet of space. For 3 days, they had maintained their position, waiting for Earth's response to their peaceful integration message. What they received instead would shake the foundations of their empire. Colonel David Rodriguez sat in the newly constructed Global Response Center beneath the Rocky Mountains, his weathered fingers hovering over the console. Around him, representatives from every major military power on Earth watched in tense silence. The Chinese general to his left nodded. The Russian admiral to his right gave a slight smile. "Send it," ordered the UN Secretary-General through a secure video link. Rodriguez pressed the button, initiating humanity's only warning to the Galactic Empire. Aboard the Imperial flagship, High Commander Zextal watched with his 4 eyes as the primitive planet's response began playing on their main view screen. His mandibles clicked in confusion as the first images appeared. The transmission began with grainy black and white footage from World War I. Soldiers trudging through snow during the Battle of Stalingrad, their faces grim but determined. The scene shifted to Vietnam, showing fighters emerging from underground tunnels in the jungle. Then came desert warfare from the Middle East, urban combat in countless cities, and mountain warfare in Afghanistan. Each clip showed humans fighting in impossible conditions. Soldiers crossing frozen rivers carrying their wounded. Resistance fighters taking on tanks with homemade weapons. Cities rising from ashes after being bombed to rubble. "Most fascinating," muttered Dr. Sarah Chen, watching the transmission from Earth's command center. "We're not showing them our advanced weapons or our latest military technology. We're showing them our history, our endless capacity to fight and survive." The images continued. Japanese soldiers defending islands to the last man. Swiss mountain troops training in avalanche conditions. Israeli forces fighting outnumbered. Finnish snipers in frozen forests. Each scene carefully chosen to demonstrate humanity's stubborn refusal to submit, no matter the odds. In the Empire's diplomatic corps, analysts scrambled to understand the message. Their universal translation matrix handled the words easily enough, but the meaning behind them caused heated debates. "Your species is barbaric," declared one imperial diplomat, his crystalline skin flashing with patterns of distress. "You showcase your violence as if it were something to be proud of." Earth's response came through a single diplomatic channel. "We showcase our determination to survive. For thousands of years, we've fought ourselves in every environment imaginable. We've mastered warfare in deserts, jungles, mountains, and cities. We fought with sticks and stones, and we fought with nuclear weapons. Throughout it all, we've learned, adapted, and grown stronger." The transmission ended with modern footage. The combined Earth fleet of submarines, ships, and aircraft. Tanks rolling across various terrains. Satellite weapons platforms disguised as communication arrays. And finally, a simple message in every known galactic language. "We've spent our entire history fighting ourselves. Imagine what we'll do to you." In the Imperial flagship, silence fell across the command deck. High Commander Zextal's skin had turned a pale shade of blue, a sign of deep concern in his species. "They dare threaten the Empire," he hissed. But Admiral Kwan, the oldest officer present, raised a warning appendage. "No, Commander, this isn't a threat. This is a warning. There's a difference." Back on Earth, Colonel Rodriguez watched the Imperial fleet's reactions through advanced sensors. "They're increasing power to their shields," he reported. "Weapons systems are charging." Dr. Chen studied the data streaming across her screens. "Look at their communication patterns. They're confused, arguing among themselves. They've never received a response like this before." The Secretary General's voice came through clear and determined. "Whether they heed our warning or not, we're ready. Humanity has spent its entire existence preparing for this moment, even if we didn't know it." As night fell across Earth, millions of soldiers at their posts, sailors at sea, and pilots in the air waited silently. The next move belonged to the Empire, but for the first time in its long history of conquest, it faced a species that wasn't afraid. They had given their only warning. What came next would depend entirely on how the Empire chose to respond. High Commander Zextal's laughter echoed through the Imperial flagship's bridge. He had conquered 32 worlds in his career, and Earth's warning amused him greatly. These humans, with their primitive weapons and emotional displays, would learn their place like all the others. "Begin standard pacification protocol," he ordered, his crystalline skin glowing with confidence. "Target their largest military installations first. Show them the futility of resistance." 5 Imperial warships broke formation and descended toward Earth's atmosphere. Their sensors showed Earth's military scrambling into defensive positions, exactly what they expected from a primitive species. What they didn't expect was Sarah Chen's smile as she watched them approach. "They took the bait," she reported from her station in the Rocky Mountain Command Center. "They're following exactly the attack pattern we predicted." She turned to Colonel Rodriguez, who nodded and pressed a sequence of buttons on his console. Across Earth, what appeared to be ordinary oil platforms in the oceans began to transform. Massive panels slid open, revealing huge gun barrels that hadn't been used since World War I. The Empire's sensors ignored them. After all, who would use such primitive weapons against advanced spacecraft? That was their first mistake. "All stations, execute Operation Thunderbolt," Rodriguez commanded. His voice was calm, almost casual. They had rehearsed this hundreds of times. In the Indian Ocean, Captain Priya Patel stood on her converted oil platform, watching the alien ship approach through her binoculars. "Old meets new," she muttered, patting the massive railway gun beside her. The weapon looked like something from a history book, but its shells were filled with technology that didn't exist in any history book. "Fire," she ordered. The ancient gun roared to life. The shell that emerged traveled at speeds that shouldn't have been possible, guided by quantum-entangled targeting systems that the Empire's jamming technology couldn't affect. The alien ship shields, calibrated to stop energy weapons, might as well have been tissue paper. The explosion lit up the sky like a second sun. On his flagship, Zextal's confident glow faded to a sickly pale blue. "Impossible," he shouted as a second Imperial ship erupted in flames. "Their weapons are primitive. Their technology is centuries behind ours." "Sir," his science officer reported, mandibles clicking nervously, "they're using technologies that shouldn't work together. Their targeting systems are. We can't jam them. They're using principles our scientists said were impossible." Across Earth, more surprises waited. When Imperial ships tried to target military bases, they found their sensors confused by simple mirrors and smoke. Techniques humans had perfected centuries ago. When they attempted to jam Earth's communications, they discovered humans still using hand signals and flags alongside quantum computers. In the Atlantic, a seemingly innocent fishing boat opened fire with a railgun hidden in its hull. In the Pacific, surfaced submarines launched missiles that looked primitive but carried warheads that phased through Imperial shields. From the Arctic, ancient radar stations that the Empire's sensors showed as abandoned came to life, coordinating Earth's defense with devastating precision. "How?" Zextal demanded as a third ship exploded. "How are they doing this?" The answer was simple, though it would take the Empire years to understand it. Humans had never stopped using any technology they found useful. While other species abandoned old methods as they developed new ones, humans kept everything that worked. They combined technologies in ways the Empire had never imagined possible. In the Rocky Mountain Command Center, Dr. Chen watched the Imperial ships retreating in disarray. "They expected us to fight like them," she said. "That's why they'll lose. We fight like us." Colonel Rodriguez nodded, remembering the warning they had sent. "We showed them our history of fighting ourselves," he said. "Now they're learning why that makes us so dangerous. We never forgot any lesson we learned in all those wars." As the surviving Imperial ships fled back to the safety of their fleet, Earth's defenders didn't celebrate. They knew this was just the first wave. The real battle was about to begin. But they had made their point. The mighty Galactic Empire had just learned that primitive didn't mean helpless. The Imperial fleet regrouped after their disastrous first attack, but they had little time to recover. Earth was done playing defense. Now it was humanity's turn to strike back. Launch Operation Rolling Thunder, Colonel Rodriguez ordered from the command center. On screens around him, thousands of green dots lit up, representing Earth's forces moving into position. What looked like chaos to the Imperial sensors was actually a carefully planned attack pattern, practiced for years. High Commander Zextal watched in growing horror as his advanced sensors detected movement worldwide. But the readings made no sense. Some of the human vehicles were powered by primitive combustion engines, while others used technology that his scientists claimed was impossible. "Sir, we're tracking multiple submarine launches," an Imperial officer reported, his crystalline skin pulsing with anxiety. "But we can't get exact numbers. They're using something called diesel-electric engines that our sensors can't properly track." Below the Atlantic Ocean's surface, Captain Maria Santos smiled in her submarine's control room. The Empire's sensors were designed to detect advanced power sources, not the nearly silent diesel-electric engines that her sub used while stalking its prey. "Time to show them why humans never abandoned submarine warfare," she said quietly. "Launch the quantum-tipped torpedoes." The torpedoes shot out, their primitive propulsion systems masking their advanced warheads. By the time the Imperial ships detected the threat, it was too late. 3 more alien vessels erupted in spectacular explosions that lit up the night sky. In orbit, the Empire attempted to coordinate their defense, but Earth's forces were attacking from too many directions using too many different methods. Modern stealth aircraft flew alongside restored World War I planes, each carrying weapons that combined old and new technologies in ways the Empire had never seen. "They're using projectile weapons," Zextal shouted in disbelief. "Actual physical bullets and shells. How are they penetrating our shields?" The answer came from an unlikely source: farmers' fields in Kansas. What looked like ordinary grain silos to Imperial scouts were actually hiding massive rail guns. These weapons used simple physics, speed and mass, combined with modern targeting systems to punch through shields designed to stop energy weapons. Dr. Chen monitored the battle from her station, watching as human ingenuity overwhelmed Imperial technology. "We're not fighting the way they expected," she noted. "They thought we'd try to match their technology. Instead, we're using everything we've got, from sticks to quantum physics." The Empire's formations broke apart as attacks came from every direction. Underground bunkers that appeared empty on their scans launched missiles. Fishing boats transformed into weapon platforms. Even civilian cargo ships revealed hidden weapon systems. "This isn't possible," an Imperial tactical officer's voice cracked with panic. "Their missiles are being guided by both satellite systems and mechanical backup systems. If we jam one, they switch to the other." In the skies over Asia, a squadron of modern fighters flew alongside vintage propeller planes. The Empire's automated targeting systems, designed to track high-tech threats, struggled to lock onto the older aircraft. While they were distracted, the modern fighters struck from unexpected angles. "Look at their formations," Colonel Rodriguez pointed out to his staff. "They fight like they've never faced a real enemy. All their wars must have been against worlds that surrendered quickly." Hour after hour, the battle raged. For every advanced tactic the Empire employed, Earth's forces had 3 different counters ready. Some high-tech, some ancient, all effective. The Empire's mighty fleet, which had conquered 1,000 worlds, found itself being taken apart by a species they had dismissed as primitive. As the sun rose over the Pacific, the extent of humanity's victory became clear. The Imperial fleet had lost 1/3 of its ships. The survivors were pulling back, their perfect formations shattered, their confidence destroyed. In the Rocky Mountain Command Center, no one celebrated yet. They knew this was just the beginning. The Empire would be back, and next time they wouldn't underestimate Earth. But that was okay. Humanity had plenty more surprises waiting. The mood aboard the Imperial flagship had changed from confidence to rage. High Commander Zextal, his crystalline skin now a deep red with anger, gave the order he had never expected to use against such a primitive world. "Prepare the planet-killer weapons," he commanded. "We will make an example of Earth." But 300 miles beneath the Rocky Mountains, in a secret facility that didn't exist on any official maps, Dr. Sarah Chen was about to reveal humanity's greatest secret. She walked into a vast room filled with quantum computers, each one built using technology reverse-engineered from Imperial scout ships that had crashed on Earth over the past decades. "It's time," she said to her team of international scientists. "Upload the virus." Colonel Rodriguez watched from his command station as Chen's team began their work. "How long have we been planning this?" he asked quietly. "Since we captured the first scout ship 15 years ago," Chen replied, her fingers flying over her keyboard. "While they thought we were just primitive humans trying to understand their technology, we were actually breaking their encryption. Every transmission, every signal they sent, we've been reading them all." In orbit, the Imperial fleet began powering up their planet-killer weapons, massive cannons designed to crack a planet's crust. But before they could fire, every screen on every Imperial ship suddenly came to life. Detailed technical specifications of their own weapons appeared, along with complete breakdowns of their weaknesses. Every secret protocol, every emergency override, every backup system, all displayed in perfect detail. "Impossible," Zextal screamed, his skin turning almost white with fear. "These are our most classified files." The next message appeared on their screens in simple text. "We know how to disable every weapon you have. We've known for years. Want to see?" As if to prove the point, power systems across the Imperial fleet began shutting down one by one. Weapons went offline. Shield generators failed. Emergency systems activated, then immediately deactivated. "Sir," one of the Imperial officers reported, his voice shaking, "they're not just hacking our systems. They're showing us exactly how they're doing it. They're teaching us our own weaknesses." In her underground lab, Dr. Chen allowed herself a small smile. "Psychological warfare," she explained to Rodriguez. "We're not just defeating them. We're showing them that we could have done this at any time. That we've been playing with them." The Imperial fleet hung helpless in orbit as more data flooded their systems. Earth's scientists hadn't just cracked their codes, they'd improved them. Along with each security flaw they exposed, they included notes on how to fix it, written in the Empire's own technical language. "But why?" Zextal demanded, watching his mighty fleet rendered powerless by invisible attacks. "Why show us how to improve our defenses?" The answer came in another text message. "Because unlike you, we don't need our enemies to be weak to defeat them. We prefer a fair fight. It's more interesting that way." In the command center, Colonel Rodriguez received reports from around the world. Earth's forces remained ready, but held their fire. They didn't need to attack. They had already won this round. "The primitive species that you thought would be an easy conquest," Chen's final message to the fleet read, "just showed you that we've been 10 steps ahead of you since before you arrived. Would you like to rethink your invasion plans?" Hour after hour, the Empire's finest engineers and scientists tried to regain control of their ships. But every time they thought they'd found a solution, Earth's quantum computers were already there, waiting, showing them another weakness they hadn't even known existed. For the first time in its long history, the mighty Galactic Empire faced not just military defeat, but complete technological humiliation. And somewhere in their vast database of conquered worlds, a note was added next to Earth's entry: "Approach with extreme caution. Classification: deceptively advanced." The Empire would need to make a choice: retreat in shame, or risk losing everything to a species that had just proven far more dangerous than anyone had imagined. News of Earth's resistance spread through the Empire like wildfire. For the first time in thousands of years, the mighty Empire faced a crisis that threatened to tear it apart from within. In the Imperial capital, 1,000 light-years from Earth, the Grand Council gathered for an emergency session. The massive crystal chamber, usually a place of order and calm, now echoed with angry voices. Earth must be destroyed completely, shouted War Minister Kovacs, his crystalline form pulsing with rage. If other worlds see that resistance is possible, the entire empire will collapse. But across the chamber, Science Minister Tilara stood firm. Her softer blue glow reflected wisdom gained from centuries of study. "You're missing the point," she said. "The humans didn't just defeat us. They showed us how to improve our own technology. They think differently than any species we've encountered." Back on Earth, Dr. Chen and her team monitored these debates through their quantum taps into the Imperial Communication Network. Colonel Rodriguez watched the translations appear on their screens in real time. "They're splitting into two groups," Chen reported. "One wants to destroy us completely. The other wants to study us, learn from us." She paused, reading more data. "And there's something else. Other worlds are watching. Worlds we didn't even know existed." Reports came in from across the empire. On a desert world called Xerxes, the slave population had begun using primitive projectile weapons against Imperial energy shields. On the ocean planet Aquarius, the native species started combining old and new technology in ways that confused Imperial sensors. "They're copying our methods," Rodriguez observed. "Earth is showing them that the Empire isn't invincible." In orbit, the Imperial fleet remained paralyzed. Earth's quantum virus had given their crews only basic control, enough to maintain life support and stability, but nothing more. Every attempt to regain weapons control was met with another demonstration of Earth's complete understanding of their systems. High Commander Zextol, once proud and confident, now sat in his command chair watching his career crumble. "How?" he whispered. "How did we misjudge them so badly?" The answer came from his youngest officer, a recent academy graduate named Jurol. "Sir, we made the same mistake the humans warned us about in their message. We watched them fighting each other for centuries and thought it made them primitive. But each of those fights taught them something new." In the imperial capital, the debate reached its peak. The War Ministry presented plans for a massive assault on Earth using the Empire's entire fleet. The Science Ministry countered with evidence of human innovation that could benefit the Empire. But the real shock came when representatives from conquered worlds began speaking up. One by one, they demanded changes. If humans could resist successfully, why couldn't they? "The Empire is facing revolution," Dr. Chen told her team, reading the latest intercepts. "And we didn't even fire a shot to cause it. Our existence alone is enough." The Grand Council's session lasted for days. The empire that had conquered 1,000 worlds now faced a choice: adapt or risk losing everything. Their perfect system of control was breaking down, all because one primitive world had dared to say no, and had the creativity and courage to back it up. In the Rocky Mountain Command Center, Earth's leaders watched and waited. Their forces remained ready, their weapons armed, their new technologies humming quietly. They had shown the Empire both their strength and their wisdom. Now it was time to see which path the Empire would choose. "Either way," Colonel Rodriguez said, studying the reports, "the galaxy will never be the same. Earth didn't just resist. We showed everyone else that resistance is possible." Dr. Chen nodded, still monitoring the Imperial communications. "And that," she said with a small smile, "might be our greatest victory of all." 1 month after Earth's demonstration of power, the Imperial diplomatic fleet approached Earth's orbit. This time, they came not with threats, but with a white flag, a human gesture they had carefully researched. Dr. Sarah Chen stood at the window of the International Space Station, watching the crystalline ships approach. Unlike their previous visit, their weapons were powered down, shield generators inactive. Beside her, Colonel Rodriguez monitored their movements on a tablet. "They're following our approach protocol exactly," he said, sounding almost impressed. "Times really have changed." In the month since the failed invasion, the Empire had undergone the biggest transformation in its history. The old Grand Council had been dissolved, replaced by a new governing body that included representatives from all worlds, not just the ruling species. The Imperial flagship's main conference room had been redesigned for this meeting. Instead of the traditional Imperial throne, there was a round table, another human concept they had adopted. High Commander Zextal, now serving as chief diplomat, sat across from the Earth delegation. "We were wrong about your species," Zextal began, his crystalline form glowing with a humble blue light. "We thought we were bringing civilization to primitives. Instead, you taught us that true civilization means respecting different paths of development." Dr. Chen smiled. "Every species develops differently," she replied. "Humans never abandoned old technology when we developed new ones. We learned to combine them in ways you hadn't imagined. That's our strength." The treaty they discussed was unlike any the Empire had ever offered. Earth would join the Empire not as a subject world, but as an equal partner. Human innovations would be shared across the galaxy, while Earth would gain access to Imperial technology. "But how do we know we can trust each other?" one of the Imperial advisors asked. Colonel Rodriguez answered by displaying the virus they had used to disable the Imperial fleet. "We're giving you the complete code," he said, "along with the fix for the vulnerability it exploited. Trust goes both ways." The changes began immediately after the treaty was signed. Earth cities started incorporating Imperial crystal technology into their architecture, while keeping their historic buildings preserved. Imperial ships began adopting human-style redundant systems, combining advanced technology with simple mechanical backups. But the biggest changes were cultural. Other worlds in the Empire began recovering their own ancient technologies, combining them with Imperial advances in ways inspired by Earth's example. The Empire, which had once demanded uniformity, learned to value diversity. 1 year later, Dr. Chen stood in her new laboratory, which combined quantum computers with old-fashioned chalkboards. Through the window, she could see the spaceport where human-designed ships sat next to Imperial vessels, each incorporating the best of both civilizations. "You know what's funny?" she said to Rodriguez, who now commanded Earth's first joint human-Imperial defense force. Their initial message wasn't entirely wrong. They did bring advancement to Earth. "The difference," Rodriguez replied, watching a group of Imperial students learning about human history, "is that we brought advancement to them too. That's what real partnership looks like." In the Imperial capital, now home to representatives from every species in the galaxy, Earth's first ambassador addressed the new council. Behind her, the Imperial banner had been redesigned. The old symbol of conquest had been replaced with a new one representing unity and diversity. "A year ago, we gave the Empire one warning," she said. "We showed them our history of fighting ourselves, thinking it would make them fear us. Instead, it taught them, and us, something more important. Every battle in our history taught us something. Every struggle made us stronger. And now, together, we're building something stronger than any of us could have built alone." The Empire that had once feared Earth's capacity for war had learned to value humanity's capacity for innovation, adaptation, and growth. The species they had dismissed as primitive had shown them a new way forward. And somewhere in the Imperial archives, Earth's classification was updated one final time. Status: partner and teacher. Notes: never judge a civilization only by its age. The youngest species may have the most to teach. The end.